And has been barnstorming with Dave McCormick. Good morning, Senator. How are you today?
Good morning, Hugh. It's good to be back on with you.
Last hour, Admiral Stavridis reminded me that he had a classmate blown up by Hezbollah in Beirut, Captain Vincent Smith, in 1983. There's a new book out by Jack Carr and James Scott called Targeted Beirut, which reminds us all about the events of 1983. What did you feel upon hearing that Hezbollah's leadership had been assassinated by Israel in the bombing of their underground bunker over the weekend?
Well, it's fantastic news, Hugh, that all Americans should celebrate and thank Israel, not just for bringing a measure of justice to all those Americans, most notably the Marines in the Beirut barracks bombing of 1983, but many other Americans who've been wounded or killed or lost loved ones at the hands of Hezbollah, but also for the ongoing threat that Hezbollah poses today, not only to Israel, but to our interests in the region. That's not what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done. Sure, they put out some platitudes about what a bad guy Nasrallah was, but then immediately started making demands that Israel enter ceasefire negotiations again with bloodthirsty terrorist groups. In reality, Hugh, we should again be thanking Israel, backing them to the hilt, and encouraging them to destroy Hezbollah and Hamas completely. They've apparently made the decision, to borrow from The Godfather, to settle all the family business at once. And that's
Senator
exactly
Cotton, you remind me, though, that when terrorist cells are cut off from command and control, and for years we've known there are Hezbollah terrorists in the United States, and we've suspected that, their command and control is completely decimated. It was destroyed by the beepers, by the walkie-talkies, by the bombings of the Radwan leadership, by the bombings of the bunker, and then subsequent assassinations in the last 2 days. Are you worried that we now have free agents, free of any kind of discipline, and basically free agents in the United States?
Well, Hugh, it is a fact that Hezbollah has tried to set up cells with Iran's help throughout the Western world. I also have to wonder, though, if those cells are having second thoughts about what they've been told all along, because I think there's a lot of second thoughts throughout the region. Remember, Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all the smarties in the Democratic foreign policy set and in Europe have told us for years that Iran is fearsome, it has a ring of fire around Israel, it can destroy downtown Tel Aviv. Iran has been totally exposed. Israel has destroyed Hamas's infrastructure and is mopping up its leadership. Israel has decapitated Hezbollah and is now going into Lebanon to clear out Hezbollah. Where is Iran's response? Where are the hundreds of thousands of rockets and mortars being fired? People around the Middle East who are afraid of Iran, who were counting on Iran's support, are now looking at Iran as a weak and feckless threat. Israel, once again, has shown itself to be the strong horse. And that's why the United States should back Israel to the hilt. Again, it can't be overstated what a huge strategic victory it is to destroy Hezbollah, which was Iran's main deterrent. We should also destroy Iran's rebel army in Yemen, after which point Iran will be totally exposed with no defenses on its flanks the first time in decades.
Now, I believe that Bashar Assad's brother has also been assassinated in Syria because Syria made the mistake of sending rockets into Israel. I am curious, Senator, do you expect the new Senate, and I know you've been out there with Dave McCormick and Bernie Moreno and Tim Sheehy and probably Nella Domenici, who knows where you've been. Do you expect the new Senate to vote aid to Israel? Because that country is really stretched beyond its limits in terms of both the financial strain on its economy and on the munitions that we've supplied them and have been slow walking under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Hugh, there's no question that a new Republican-led Senate will back Israel strongly, unlike Chuck Schumer's Senate. Chuck Schumer called for new elections in Israel because he's catering to the anti-Semitic wing in his party that doesn't like Benjamin Netanyahu. I frankly would like to call for new elections in New York to get rid of Chuck Schumer. But that will stop. That will stop whenever we're in charge of the Senate. There are still a handful of Democrats that will vote for aid as well. So we'll have more than enough votes to make sure that we back Israel to the hilt. They won't be able to hide behind Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden refusing to bring these bills to the floor to vote on it. And it's not just aid, military aid either, Hugh. It's providing Israel the moral, political, and diplomatic support it needs. The House of Representatives passed with some meager Democratic support an effort to sanction the International Criminal Court, also known as the International Kangaroo Court, who's been targeting Israel for years. Chuck Schumer refuses to bring it to the floor because, again, the Democratic Party has a large and growing anti-Semitic wing in its ranks.
Now, Senator Cotton, coming up after you, former Ambassador David Friedman is joining me to talk about his brand new book, One Jewish State, in which he makes the argument, good trial lawyer, David Friedman's a heck of a trial lawyer, makes the argument for Israel extending sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. I don't expect a statement from you about that, but I'm curious if you think Israel has found its sea legs. I'm just so extraordinarily impressed by Netanyahu in the last 3 weeks, the way he's threaded this very, very difficult situation and gave that speech at the UN, even as the bombers were in the air for Beirut. I just don't think we have a comparison. Dr. Warren said Obama went into the White House Correspondents Association as president when we were, executing Osama bin Laden raid. It is a remarkable run for Netanyahu over 3 weeks. Do you agree?
It is. Tremendous leadership from one of the great statesmen of recent times. Also want to stress, though, Hugh, it's not just Benjamin Netanyahu. It's all of the Israeli government, frankly, all of Israel, strongly united. Whatever other domestic controversies may roil Israeli politics, as they often do, behind the prime minister's war strategy to destroy Hamas and now to destroy Hezbollah. That's, again, something that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris always omit. It may be controversial in the Democratic Party in America. It's not controversial in Israel that Israel can't live with a terror statelet on its border, aiming thousands of rocket missiles at its people, displacing 80,000 Israelis for more than a year from the north.
Now, Senator Cotton, I want to turn to domestic politics. We have the debate tonight. Your colleague, J.D. Vance from Ohio, will be on stage with Governor Walz. And Margaret Brennan of Face the Nation and Nora O'Donnell of CBS Evening News are both liberals. You have met with both of them. I wonder if you were surprised. You had Robert Costa sitting in for Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. Were you a little bit stunned that you actually got through a few answers without being interrupted by the host?
No, Hugh, it's fine. The host can try to have, as you often say, a debate as opposed to an interview. What I'm confident of is that J.D. Vance is going to do an excellent job of exposing that Kamala Harris is a dangerous San Francisco liberal and that Tim Walz wants to make Minnesota, California, and he's gone a long way towards that, if you know anyone in Minnesota. And that's what they do to America as well. Of course, J.D. also has a big advantage over Tim Walz in this debate, which is he knows where he stands and what he believes. Maybe even more important, he knows where the boss stands and what he believes. Tim Walz is almost as absent from the news as Kamala Harris because he can't go out and answer any question. Kamala Harris wants to ban fracking. She's wanted to for 50 years of her life, and now all of a sudden she's had an election eve conversion. She won't say where she stands on race-based reparations. She won't say where she stands on the gas-powered vehicle ban and the electric vehicle mandate. How is Tim Walz going to answer these questions tonight? He has no idea what Kamala Harris is going to say next in her craven and opportunistic efforts to get herself elected.
The Free Beacon has a story yesterday on Governor Walz's trips to China, including one he didn't make. He claimed to have been in Hong Kong at the Tiananmen Square massacre. He wasn't. He was. I mean, they've got the goods on him. He seems to be a serial fabulist, Senator Cotton. I'm not sure they're going to bring that up at all tonight because it is left-leaning moderators. Do you expect that to come up tonight, Tim Walz in China?
Well, Hugh, as you pointed out, it's very notable that in the ABC presidential debate, the moderators didn't ask a single question about China. Now, I think we should point out, as you have, that ABC is owned by Disney, which has theme parks inside China and which needs access to China's very large domestic movie market. CBS is affiliated with Paramount. The same exact situation with CBS. In fact,
I hadn't thought about that. You're right.
Every major news network and network in America, except for Fox, is owned by or affiliated with a major movie studio that kowtows to Chinese communists. So, no, I wouldn't expect CBS moderators to bring that up. I bet J.D. Vance will, because Tim Walz has a 35-year history of entanglement with the Chinese Communist Party, to include financial enrichment. And lo and behold, Tim Walz has been notoriously soft on Chinese communism for years. I'm very confident that J.D. Vance will point out his soft on communism record just like Kamala Harris is soft on communism.
Last question, Senator. I have been urging people to go to the Salvation Army or Team Rubicon or any group that's operating relief efforts in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. Did Arkansas, was it spared by the hurricane, or is it also suffering?
No, the Helene tracked far enough to the east that we didn't get much effect from it. But, man, the devastation in parts of Georgia and Tennessee and North Carolina in particular is just terrible. So your heart goes out for all those folks. You know, we got some steep and narrow valleys and ravines in the Ozarks that I can only imagine what the devastation would be there if you got that level of rain. And I think that's what happened in those Appalachian valleys.
Are you surprised, Senator, that we didn't get a warning? I mean, if this was Katrina and Bush, we'd be hearing all about this, but we're not. And I don't want to second-guess scientists. Maybe it's impossible. But this does seem like flat-footedness on FEMA and NOAA's part.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the focus has to be on restoring services in these valleys. Again, some of them are still cut off in terms of cell service, access to roads that have been washed out. We really have to focus on getting the aid that we need to those people. But I do think there's going to have to be an after-action review, as they'd say in the military, because, again, when you're looking at these narrow and very deep valleys and ravines, some of which we have, again, in the Ozarks, if you get the level of rain they have received, it could be very dangerous. And I think that's unfortunately what you've seen
Senator,
over in the southeast.
Yeah. I repeat, people can help with the Salvation Army or at Team Rubicon, and I thank you, Senator Cotton, for joining me this morning.